Hello viewers, thank you so much for joining me on this channel. In my previous videos, I have described how I passed MRCS Part A and how I passed MRCS ENT OSCE. I've also described how to become a member of the Royal College of Surgeons. Once you have become a member of the Royal College of Surgeons and you have decided to move to the UK to work as a doctor, you have to prove to the GMC or General Medical Council that you can communicate effectively in English. The way to do that is to get a GMC approved score in either IELTS, which is International English Language Testing System, or OET, which is Occupational English Test. Let's compare the differences between the two. IELTS has an exam fees of approximately 16,000 Indian national rupees, whereas OET costs almost double. Both IELTS and OET can be taken either on paper or on computer. OET also has an additional option of taking it at home, although I don't know how widespread this option is. I could not avail of this opportunity myself. It was not available where I resided at the time when I appeared in the OET. IELTS is held 4 times a month, and OET I think is held twice a month. You should verify it on the official OET website. Both IELTS and OET have 4 subsections: speaking, reading, listening, and writing. The GMC expects you to score 7, at least 7 in each subsection, and overall 7.5 in the academic version of IELTS. And as far as OET is concerned, the minimum criteria for GMC is B in each subsection. OET does not give you an overall score, and the version of OET that is acceptable to GMC is medicine for doctors. Both IELTS and OET results are valid for 2 years. Now, why did I choose OET? I chose OET because OET is specifically designed for healthcare workers. So the scenarios in the OET were largely based on the scenarios that one would encounter in our day-to-day lives as doctors. So that's why I chose OET. IELTS is also a very good choice, and what I have heard is IELTS is more difficult than OET. Although I don't think that I am weak in English, but I certainly did consider that the most recent experience of an English exam in my life was back when I was in school, which has been a long time. So yes, I was also a bit nervous, so that is also a factor. The fact that OET was almost universally believed to be easier than IELTS, it also contributed towards me choosing OET instead of IELTS. Although I know many people who chose IELTS, and IELTS is the more popular exam, but you can choose either one of the two. I chose OET. Let's discuss OET further. OET can be for these occupations: occupational English test. It is for healthcare occupations. As you can see here, there is medicine, pharmacy, dentistry. Of course, if you're a doctor, then you would choose the medicine version of the test. Now, OET has 4 subsections, and this is also the order in which the test happens. It starts with listening, then reading, then writing, and then speaking. The last two, writing and speaking, is different for different professions. So it will not be the same for a doctor and say a nurse, but listening and reading is common across all 12 professions. Again, there is a difference here. If you're taking OET on paper or OET on computer, if you're taking OET on paper, all these 4 subsections happen in one event in one venue, whereas the computer version only includes listening, reading, and writing. The speaking part of the computer exam is on a video call, which you can schedule according to your convenience. So when you go to the venue for the computer-based test, the test starts with the listening subsection, goes on to reading, and then writing, and then you're done. You go back home, and then you attend the speaking part of the test by a video call, okay, that you have scheduled previously. Now, the listening part of the test has its challenges. What are the challenges? The challenges are the various accents that you may encounter. You may encounter an Australian accent or a Scottish accent or someone from the south of England. You don't really know what you are going to encounter. So you have to practice and you have to familiarize yourself with various accents, various English accents. Now, subsection A is a communication between two people, and you'll have a transcript with lots of blanks. So, say somebody says, I used to play badminton 4 years ago, and you have a transcript on your screen saying, I used to play blank 4 years ago. So, you just type in badminton. So, pay attention and then type in as you listen. You'll probably get 1 or 2 minutes before the audio starts to read the transcript, and there'll be about 20 blanks if I remember correctly. The subsection B and subsection C is about a conversation. Subsection B is a conversation between two people, and there will be options where, say, a patient is communicating with a doctor, and then the question is, what did the doctor reassure the patient about, or what was the patient most concerned about? So based on the audio, you have to choose the right option. And subsection C is usually a long lecture, or maybe two long lectures. I'm not exactly certain, I don't remember it correctly, but it is a longer communication, and there are 6 questions. So it starts with maybe a lecture about side effects of analgesics, and then the first question is uh, something to do with what is the speaker's opinion about brand name usage, and then there are 3 options, and the speaker will say something about brand names, or who does the speaker blame most for the current situation related to overuse of analgesics, and the answer will be there in the speech. So you have to listen to the speech carefully and look at the options. So it is slightly tricky, you have to multitask. So it is slightly tricky listening, but with practice it becomes easy. Then the reading part is, and again you have two, although it's divided to 3 subsections, I like to believe it to be two. Subsection A and subsection B and C. Subsection A is about speed reading, where you have to read something really quickly because the time is quite limited, maybe 15 minutes and 20 questions. And subsection B and C, it's about understanding the text. So there will be a passage, maybe 4 or 5 lines, and then there will be what does the author mean by this, or what is the main concern in this case. So if you understand the extract properly and just read the question, you'll be able to come to an answer, and then you look for that answer in the options below. That, I believe, is the better way of approaching the reading section, instead of reading the questions first and then uh, reading the options first and then going and looking for the answer in the extract. That kind of confuses you a bit more. By far the most difficult part of OET, in my opinion, is the writing part, because we are not really accustomed to writing such extensive correspondence in our day-to-day lives as doctors, certainly from where I come from, and the marking is strict, and it is a little tricky, and OET data suggests that this is where most doctors struggle. So yes, you have to practice this as much as possible. Um, there is a format, and there are things which are common to all discharge letters or all transfer letters which you can't really modify. But the body of the letter has to be both concise, it has to be clear, it has to be coherent, it has to be um, logically framed. You have to include everything that is relevant, and you have to exclude everything that is irrelevant. So based on the clinical notes available to you, so you'll have clinical notes and you'll have an instruction: write a discharge letter for Mrs. so and so to go to a nursing home, or transfer Mrs. Smith, say, to a different doctor, or to a tertiary care hospital for better management, something like that. A task will be there and you have to explain it properly. So for example, I had a task where I had to write to a rheumatologist regarding a patient who I suspected had lupus. So I felt it was fairly straightforward. I had to write the symptoms, I had to write what medicines I had started, that I had already diagnosed lupus, and that I wanted the patient to um, be attended to by the rheumatologist, because rheumatologist is the specialist um, in lupus. But that's not the case, I felt. Later on, when I came back from the test, I felt I needed to send the patient to a rheumatologist because the patient was not convinced. And this didn't occur to me while I was reading the clinical notes, because it was clearly mentioned in the clinical notes that the patient thought her symptoms were due to anxiety. And I was the GP in that scenario. I had already diagnosed lupus. I had already found that anti-nuclear antibodies were positive, and I had already started treatment, if I remember correctly. So I felt the rheumatologist should be able to continue the treatment. Instead, I felt later on that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I felt that maybe the rheumatologist came into the picture because the rheumatologist needed to convince the patient that her symptoms were due to lupus and not due to anxiety. So you have to read the clinical notes properly, interpret them properly. So, and only if you interpret the notes properly, you'll be able to construct the right letter and send the right message to the intended recipient. So I had interpreted the right message as being continuing the care for lupus, and that's why the patient was going to a rheumatologist. But probably the right message was convincing the patient that she had lupus. So it again, with practice, you'll be able to become very good at it. And moving on to the last section, OET speaking. This is something where if you take the computer version of the test, you communicate with an interlocutor. It is very important to remember that the interlocutor is not the examiner. So even if you get a phenomenal response or a not so phenomenal response from the interlocutor while the test is being conducted, you can have a different result. Although in my experience, the interlocutor was very impressed with the way I was speaking, and my results also reflected that. If you're taking the computer version of the test, then the video call can be organized from the comfort of your home. So you should carry your passport, original passport with you. So when you're registering for OET, you can choose passport as the identity document, and you have to carry that passport with you during the video call because the interlocutor will want to see the passport. They will also again conduct a search of the room. So it's a proctored exam. They'll want to see if you have anything that you can cheat with in the room or not. So there is a list of things you can't keep on your desk or in the room that you should verify just before your exam. And in the speaking test, you have two clinical scenarios. So you'll have a clinical situation and you'll have some tasks, say 5 or 6 tasks that you have to communicate with the patient or the patient's relatives. These tasks will always be visible at all times, even when you are speaking with the interlocutor. So you don't have to memorize the tasks. So in my case, I had to talk to a patient that she had something called slapped cheek syndrome and not a viral infection or something, and not something else. So I had to convince them that this is the disease and not something else that you're thinking. Um, so it's fairly straightforward, but you have to communicate in a logical manner and you have to be fluent. You'll be marked on your fluency. You'll be marked on how many times you are restarting a sentence. You'll be marked on the number of ums and ahs and whether you are using the right words, you are easily understood, whether your accent is interfering with your intelligibility. So there are these factors. Again, if you go through the marking criteria which is available on the official OET website, you'll be able to understand what they expect from you. The last thing that I want to mention before concluding this video is if you have studied in an English medium school in India and you were fairly good in the English subject, then I don't think you need to prepare for more than 10 days to really pass this exam. But if you feel nervous, which is quite understandable because it is not a very inexpensive exam, so you can give yourself a month, and if you give yourself a month and you prepare regularly every day, uh, and the only resource you really need is the official OET website or the official OET YouTube channel, I'm pretty confident that 1 month of steady preparation from the OET official website or official OET YouTube channel is going to be more than enough for you to pass OET comfortably. So I would like to end this video by showing you a screenshot of my OET result. As you can see, I secured A, so 450 to 500 is grade A. I narrowly missed out on A in the speaking section because I felt towards the end I became too confident and I fumbled for about um, 15 seconds. I started stammering for no particular reason. So maybe that is the reason why I missed out on an A grade in speaking. Writing, as I said, it was a challenge and maybe I misunderstood a convincing task as a continuing care task. So I'm very happy I passed writing because I got just above 350. 350 is the cutoff for B, and if you get anything lower than B, then you have to take the entire test again. It's not like you can only appear for the writing section. You have to take the entire test again. So as you can see, I have secured A in listening, A in reading, B in speaking, and B in writing. So as per the GMC criteria, I have got B and above in all of the 4 sections in one test. And this is the medicine version of the test. You can just the OET website has something called manage verifier access, so you can set that as GMC. So this result directly goes to GMC. You don't have to print it out or take a screenshot and email it. You can just allow access to this result to the GMC and they'll get to see it when you are applying for GMC registration. I hope this video helped you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me on in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and thank you so much for watching my video. All the best.